The night was cold and quiet in the small town of Maplewood. For the Carter family, it was supposed to be just another peaceful evening. The parents, James and Lisa, had just tucked their 2 children into bed, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. The scent of freshly baked cookies still lingered in the air, and the fireplace crackled softly, casting a warm glow across the living room. Everything seemed calm, until a pair of watchful eyes outside the house noticed something no one else did. Just a few blocks away, a stray dog roamed the streets, scavenging for food. He was a mixed breed, his fur matted from months of surviving on his own. No one knew where he came from, and most people ignored him, dismissing him as just another stray. But tonight, something was different. As he wandered through the neighborhood, his nose twitched, catching a strange, acrid scent in the air. He paused, ears perked, sniffing again. Smoke. Instinct kicked in. His paws moved swiftly as he followed the scent, leading him straight to the Carter family's home. From the outside, everything looked normal, but the dog sensed danger. He stopped in front of the house, staring at the windows. Inside, the family was completely unaware of the hidden threat growing within their walls. The fire hadn't yet revealed itself, but deep within the house, something was smoldering. For a moment, the dog hesitated. Would they listen to him? Strays were often shooed away, treated as nuisances. But something inside him, some deep, unshakable instinct, told him he had to act. He stepped onto the porch and let out a single, sharp bark. Then another, and another. His voice cut through the silence of the night, demanding attention. But would anyone hear him in time? Inside the house, Lisa stirred in her sleep. A faint noise had pulled her from her dreams, but in her drowsy state, she couldn't quite place it. It was distant yet persistent, sharp barks echoing through the stillness of the night. At first, she thought it was just another stray making noise outside, but then came a scratching sound at the front door. That was unusual. She sat up, listening more intently. The barks weren't random. They were urgent, almost desperate, like a warning she couldn't ignore. Outside, the stray dog continued his frantic efforts to alert the family. He scratched harder at the door, barking louder, his tail stiff with tension. His instincts screamed that time was running out. The scent of smoke was growing stronger, and now a faint orange glow flickered at the edges of one of the downstairs windows. Inside, the unseen fire had begun to spread, creeping through the walls like a silent predator. The family was asleep, completely unaware that danger was already inside their home. James, groggy from exhaustion, finally woke to the noise and sighed in frustration. "Probably just a stray," he muttered, rubbing his eyes as he got out of bed. He trudged toward the front door, intending to scare the dog away. But the moment he placed his hand on the doorknob, he froze. Something was off. The metal was warm. A flicker of confusion crossed his face before realization struck like a bolt of lightning. There was heat seeping through the walls. His pulse spiked. His instincts, though dulled by sleep just moments ago, now screamed at him. Something was terribly wrong. Without hesitation, he threw open the door. The stray dog leaped back, then barked furiously at him, turning toward the side of the house. James followed his gaze and felt his stomach drop. Thick, black smoke was now billowing from the vents near the roof. His heart pounded as adrenaline surged through his veins. "Lisa, get the kids," he yelled, his voice laced with urgency. Lisa, hearing the sheer panic in his tone, bolted upright. One look out the window told her everything. Flames were licking at the edges of the kitchen doorway. The house was burning, and if not for that stray dog, they never would have known until it was too late. But there was no time to think. The fire was spreading fast, consuming everything in its path. The dog barked again, stepping toward the driveway, as if telling them to move. They had mere moments to escape. Would they make it out in time? Chaos erupted as James grabbed his son while Lisa scooped up their daughter, rushing toward the front door. The smoke was thickening, curling through the air like grasping fingers, making it harder to breathe. Every second counted. As they stumbled onto the porch, the stray dog was already in motion, circling them anxiously, barking as if urging them to move faster. He wasn't just some random stray anymore. He was their guide, their protector in this desperate escape. Behind them, the fire spread with terrifying speed. The kitchen was now fully engulfed, flames licking hungrily at the ceiling, sending sparks flying into the night. Lisa's eyes widened in horror as she realized their car keys were still inside. "James, the car," she started, but the dog interrupted with a sharp bark, sprinting toward the street. James hesitated for a brief second before realizing what the dog seemed to be signaling. "The neighbors," he muttered, grabbing Lisa's hand. They had no time to go back. The fire was claiming everything. Their only choice was to run. The family followed the dog down the driveway, coughing as the acrid smoke clung to their lungs. The dog led them with unwavering determination, glancing back every few steps as if to make sure they were still following. When they reached the neighbor's porch, James pounded on the door, his voice hoarse from the smoke. Within seconds, lights flickered on, and the door flew open. Their neighbor, Mr. Calloway, gasped at the sight. "My God, what happened?" he asked, ushering them inside. "Fire, our house, it's gone," Lisa managed to choke out. The kids clung to her, trembling. From the safety of the neighbor's living room, they could now see the full scale of the disaster. Flames roared through the Carter home, consuming everything they owned. The windows shattered one by one, sending showers of embers into the night. Fire trucks arrived moments later, their sirens piercing the air, but James knew it was too late. Their home was lost. He clenched his jaw, grief and relief battling inside him. They had lost everything, but they were alive. And all because of the stray dog who now sat at their feet, panting but alert, his eyes locked onto James as if waiting for approval. Lisa knelt beside him, stroking his soot-covered fur. "You saved us," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. The dog tilted his head, as if he understood. He had no name, no home of his own, and yet he had done what no one else could. He had seen the danger, fought to be heard, and refused to give up until they were safe. James exhaled shakily, meeting his wife's teary gaze. "We can't let him go," he said. Lisa nodded, squeezing his hand. The dog wasn't stray anymore. He was family. The Carters watched in stunned silence as firefighters battled the inferno that had once been their home. The sky was thick with smoke, glowing orange against the night, and the acrid scent of burning would lingered in the air. Lisa held their children close, whispering reassurances, though her own heart was pounding with shock. James stood beside her, jaw clenched, trying to process the loss. Everything they had built, their memories, their belongings, was turning to ash before their eyes. And yet, amid the devastation, there was one undeniable truth: they were alive. And it was all because of the dog now curled up at their feet. A firefighter approached them, pulling off his helmet. "You folks were lucky," he said, his voice rough but kind. "That fire started in the wiring behind your kitchen wall. If you hadn't gotten out when you did, it would have been too late." James swallowed hard, glancing at the dog, who was still watching him intently. The weight of what could have happened settled heavily on his shoulders. If that dog hadn't barked, hadn't refused to leave them alone, they never would have woken up in time. A shudder ran through him. This stray, this nameless guardian, had given them a second chance at life. Their son, Ethan, knelt beside the dog and ran a hand through his dirty fur. "He saved us, Dad," he said softly. "Can we keep him?" James looked at Lisa, who was already wiping tears from her eyes. She nodded without hesitation. "We owe him everything," she murmured. But before they could say another word, a different question arose. Would the dog even want to stay? He had spent so long on his own, surviving in the streets. Did he even know what it meant to belong to a family? James crouched down, reaching out carefully. "Hey, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't have to go back out there. You have a home with us now, if you want it." For a moment, the dog didn't move. He just stared at James, his deep brown eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, his tail began to wag. Just once at first, then again, faster, stronger. And then, to everyone's surprise, he nudged James's hand, pressing his nose against his palm. The message was clear. He had already made his choice. Lisa let out a shaky laugh, relief flooding through her. "Well, I guess that's settled," she said. Their daughter, Sophie, giggled and threw her arms around the dog, who responded by licking her cheek. The Carters had lost their house, their possessions, but in that moment, none of it seemed to matter. Because they had each other, and they had gained something more than they ever expected, a hero who had been waiting for family all along. The next morning, the Carter family sat together in their neighbor's home, exhaustion weighing on them. Though their house was gone, they had already started making plans for the future. Insurance would help them rebuild, but no amount of money could replace the feeling of security they had lost. Still, as James looked around at his wife and children, safe alive, he knew they had something far more valuable than any material possession. And lying at their feet, curled up contentedly, was the reason why. The dog had stayed close to them all night, never straying far. It was as if he knew his place had changed. No longer just a stray wandering the streets, he was now part of something bigger, a family that loved him. Ethan and Sophie had already started calling him Ember, a name that, ironically, was born from a very fire that had almost taken everything from them. And Ember seemed to like it. His ears perked up every time they called his name, his tail thumping against the floor with quiet joy. As the sun rose, James took Ember outside for a walk around the block. The street was eerily quiet, with only the blackened remains of their home standing as a grim reminder of what had happened. He sighed, rubbing his temples, but when he looked down at Ember, the dog was watching him, not with sadness, but with certainty. He had done his job. He had saved them. And now, he was ready for whatever came next. James knelt beside him, running a hand through his fur. "Guess we both get a fresh start, huh?" he murmured. Ember responded with a happy bark, as if to say, exactly. Over the next few weeks, the Carter family worked through the challenges of rebuilding their lives. Friends and neighbors stepped in to help, and with every small victory, finding a rental home, replacing lost essentials, settling into a new routine, Ember was there, a constant source of comfort and strength. He wasn't just a pet. He was a reminder of survival, of resilience, of the fact that even in the darkest moments, there could be light. He had been a stray, unwanted and forgotten. Now he was a hero, a protector, and most importantly, a beloved member of the family. As the Carters sat together one evening in their temporary home, watching the kids play with Ember in the yard, Lisa reached for James's hand. "I don't know how we'll ever repay him," she said softly. James squeezed her fingers, smiling as Ember bounded happily through the grass. "We already have," he said. "He saved us, and we gave him what he's always wanted, a family." Lisa smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. They had lost their house, but they had found something greater, proof that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come in the unlikeliest forms.